Council, do you have any questions of staff? Councilor Warren.
Thank you. So we're actually asking for a variance, or the applicant is asking for a variance to vary the hillside development guidelines. That's really the only variance, correct?
That is correct.
So we're in a situation where before our time, this law was created.
Correct.
And so now it's a legal lot. It's not like they're asking to subdivide the lot and create it like I did. This is actually a legal lot that is been created. So how can we actually stop this? If somebody allowed this lot to be created, then someone has to allow someone to build on it. Do they not?
It would be very challenging. I don't think it would not be possible to build on this lot, taking into consideration all of Vernon's regulations set in place today due to the 30% slope.
Yeah, so that's what I guess that's what I'm saying. Exactly. Like, so, but how can we not grant a variance when this lot was created, this person bought this lot, and they have to be able, like, we have to permit them to build on it because it's a legal lot? Or am I incorrect, Mr.
Great. Pierce?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the law was created in the 60s, well before many of the policies of this council and recent councils were in place. Council, there is an alternate, and the recommendation is before you. Council can consider the alternate that is there. So, frankly, just because a lot exists does not require council to approve the lot unless development on the lot, unless the development is consistent with council policy and direction.
Okay.
Councilor Mund and then Councilor Anderson.
Carrie, question. So we're going to take the natural drainage pattern, put it into the runoff ditch. I actually think that will benefit the lower lots because now you're taking all the water that's running off the top all the way down and putting it through the ditch. Once it gets to the culvert, though, and it gets to the other side, is there a ditch created to run that water into Okanagan Lake, or what happens when the water is on the other side of that culvert? Does it naturally just flow all over the next lot, or do we have something that directs it right to Okanagan Lake? I guess that's the question, because obviously because it not only goes to the next property, then it crosses Okanagan Avenue, so it would have to go underneath again. And is that what it does? Is there another culvert at that point?
Staff?
With this, I'd like to first say that this application is about whether or not the 30% hillside regulation should be varied on this property. The second part is yes, staff have recognized that there is a drainage concern in this area, and staff is working on a solution for that drainage. So while the drainage off the property isn't part of this variance application, I will hand it over to our engineering staff to address the drainage.
Your Worship, with regards to the drainage, it was not uncommon for the Ministry of Transportation when they built roads to put culverts across at low points and then not define any overland route or protect any overland route. Part of the legislation when you have very low density is that you don't technically have to do that. And so we've got several instances out in the landing that most people and council are aware of, where we have ponding and other issues related to the fact that there is no directed release of the waters that are directed towards certain locations. Matthew has been working with others on the city and looking at trying to come up with solutions to try to resolve this. And so I believe there's two options, Matthew.
Your worship, just to back up a little bit, the drainage culvert that you guys are speaking of is right around 8830. Yeah, you can see there's a culvert at 8830, and then the water drains through there into an infiltration system that overtops and drains through 8830, which the Friesens have maintained themselves, and drains towards Okanagan Landing Road. That's not in a protected statutory right of way. If the drainage passes there or drains from beyond that culvert, it drains towards the end of the cul-de-sac, which it then overtops the road. You can see a wet patch on the road on GIS. That's drainage overtopping and going into 8818, which is also unprotected. We are currently negotiating with 8018 to obtain a statutory right of way, and have been for the past year.
Quick question, staff follow-up. When it hits Landing Road, have you got a solution across Landing Road and into Okanagan Lake, or is that pooling that we notice on the south side of Landing Road part of the problem?
So there's a couple of problems with this. Obviously, once it drains down here, I can't show it on here, but you can see on the GIS that there's also a wet patch at the bottom of 8830's driveway. There's no statutory right of way on the lake side of Okanagan Landing Road to bring the drainage down. So even if we do get the stat right of way, we can bring the drainage down to Okanagan Landing Road, but then we'll need another statutory right of way to bring the drainage from Okanagan Landing Road towards the lake. We have looked at an option of bringing the drainage through 8830, but that would potentially cause more problems because you're bringing it down to Okanagan Landing Road, and the road drains to the north and the ditch drains to the south. It's kind of a reverse grade ditch because there's no property to drain from the bottom of the driveway. That's why the ditch is graded towards that. So it's a complicated drainage network.
Staff, and that's the small boat launch across the street there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Know the area well. Okay, Councilor Anderson.
Follow-up question for that. What's the timeline on the drainage being fixed?
As Matthew has noted, they're working on possible solution to this until the city is able to acquire a statutory right of way to direct the water through. We can't proceed further with works.
Okay. But building on this property is not going to make it worse. It's going to make it better. Is that a fair assessment? If it's drained toward the culvert?
As it is right now, if a 100-year event hits that property, it will drain into the ditch, into the culvert that's existing. What we're proposing in our recommendation is that they retain a 100-year event and release it at a 2-year pre-development flow rate. So it will be less flow rate.
Okay.
Which is beyond our current bylaw requirements.
Pardon me?
That recommendation is beyond our current bylaw requirements.
Okay.
Just clarification, staff, that would require tanking, would it, on site? How are you gonna store the water?
Okay.
I still have the floor, I guess. Okay. Yeah, I have no desire to say that somebody who bought a lot in good faith can't build on it. I want an assurance, number one, that this is going to be bettered, and it appears to be better because of the construction that's going on here. I also would like some assurance that the sewage isn't going to end up flowing across somebody else's lot too. And I haven't really got that because I don't know when so anyway.
It's gone dead. I think council's struggling with this one for technical reasons that we can't judge very effectively on. We've got a professional indicating that the septic system itself will function. But we don't seem to have anything here in the paperwork that indicates that it will not contribute to the downstream problem. It's been asked to look down a pipe, and it's effectively looked down the pipe. But the question we have is not what's down the pipe. Our question is, will that add moisture to the downslope properties? And one would seem by logic, when you pour water in the top, it comes out in the bottom. And one would assume that this is groundwater, not runoff. So therefore, our bylaw deals with runoff and not groundwater. And the downhill slope is dealing with groundwater as well as runoff. And the concern they're raising are groundwater questions related to angles of trees, etc. That's groundwater. That's not usually surface water. Particularly if the current grasses and stuff are in existence in the uphill. I haven't been onto the uphill, but grass, etc. There, you get this layer of grasses and then quite dry. It seems like weird. This is quite dry, and then underneath it, you get quite wet against the bedrock. So this is a difficult one for council. Comments, Councilor Anderson?
Does it make sense to defer this until we get some sort of engineering report on whether this is going to contribute to the groundwater downstream, downhill?
Can we do that? Question to staff or a question to Mr. Pierce? Can we do that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly, council can postpone for the consideration of the report that's before you and request additional technical information, and the administration will do its best to seek that. And I just want to be clear on the last question. So, Councilor Quarring asked about council's, and I'll use this word, obligation to permit development on a legal lot. So, provided a potential, and council's has dealt with this before, provided a proposed development is entirely compliant with the zoning that applies to that lot, the developer has the right to proceed with development, as long as the development is entirely compliant with the zoning. This particular lot is under the zoning bylaw, which does not permit development on slopes exceeding 30% without a variance. So therefore you have the variance in front of you. And so if council is comfortable with the engineering that's been presented regarding the proposed development on a slope exceeding 30%, then you could look at approving the application that's before you. If you're not comfortable with the engineering that's been provided to validate development on slopes exceeding 30%, council can remain with the current bylaw conditions, which is the alternate in the report, which would not permit development to proceed, and presumably until additional work is provided to council, or the city completes the neighborhood drainage, or the proposed development deals with some of the sanitary questions. So, that's it, Mr. Mayor.
Well, I guess I've still got the floor. I'll make a motion to defer this. I don't want to say no, and I don't want to say fill your boots yet, but I'll make a motion to defer this until we have an engineer's report suggesting that this will not make the problem worse.
Councilor, now that we have that, we have to either have a second and then we deal with
Second it
just
and then
that.
add to it, and I'll say yeah.
Pardon? Okay, now we're gonna debate just whether it's deferred, correct? We're not debating the content.
He's adding to my motion.
Okay, are you adding to the motion? Councilor Quarren?
What Scott's actually got, I don't know if he can actually do what Scott wants to do, which is have a motion for deferral, but within it is a discussion. So.
Was there a request? Ms. Bridle, can we request additional information and deferral?
Why not?
So the motion of a deferral is deferring further consideration and requesting administration bring back that additional information. So that gives you a reason for the deferral. And
Okay.
once this is passed, it's deferred and it won't be discussed any further.
Okay, so then do we have the opportunity to discuss this motion,
Yeah, we're discussing just the motion of deferral.
which includes the information that Scott is seeking,
Right,
correct?
correct.
Okay. So, I think what we want, just to be clear, I think
I think what we want to know is, some of us are of the opinion that this construction will actually make the situation better because of the controlling of the flow.
Okay.
What we don't want to have is we don't want to make the situation better by dealing with the construction and then actually end up making it significantly worse because of the septic. We don't want to give it to you with one hand and take it away with the other. So, what we would like an engineer to confirm is, will the septic system add additional charge to the groundwater to the point that it becomes a problem? And I would say that, are we putting this on the applicant to actually do that, or is the city going to do this? Like, who does that? The applicant. Okay. So, is that?
Okay, now we're debating because we got a motion and a seconder, we're just debating the deferral, not the content. Okay, Councilor Hall?
My question is because this was approved or supported by the APC, will that report go to APC? And will it come to us?
Process? Mr.
Typically, no. APC's referred it as it was provided in your report, and council at this level would review it, and if they want some additional information, that would be brought forward by administration. Unless it changed the development a lot, where staff felt that APC needed to weigh in on it again, but if not, then it wouldn't need to go back to APC.
Is it just?
Okay, yeah. Got it. Councilor Munn?
We have an engineer's report here talking about the septic system and what, so just exactly what are we looking for, Scott, in terms of a report? Because we have one in here saying that the septic system has been designed and dotty, and so if we're gonna get something, let's make sure it's precise.
That's what Brian just said.
Yeah. It just speaks on the septic system, that's what he's saying, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna call the question. I think you're clear about what's precise. I think. No, I think we're, Councilor Quire.
Thank you. So, Akbal, we have a report from a geotechnical engineer that deals with the drainage, and that's fine. What we're asking for is the septic person responsible for the septic system to provide us with a similar letter, because we have nothing from Bartel in this application, and there's a concern raised about the groundwater. But not specifically to will it contribute to what's it going to do to the subsurface flow? I mean, I'm kind of with Akbal on this, and we have the reports. I mean, I'm kind of with you there.
I can call the question. I'll call the question. All those in favor of deferral? Those opposed? Defeated? Yeah. Original motion, which is to approve the DVP. All those in favor?
Can I just speak for a second?
Go ahead, Mr. Guire.
Well, Carrie summed it up she said, should you allow, she hit the nail on the head. We're debating whether or not we should permit somebody to build on a slope steeper than 30%. That's what we can't do anything about the septic. There's professionals involved. Another question.
I'm new to this, but I totally disagree with you. This is the only mechanism we have. But if the development is going to affect the downstream property owners, then we need to say can't be developed on, because we've already got a groundwater issue that's been flagged, and we've got a surface water issue that's been flagged. And I see in these reports, I'm not a geotech engineer, I know that. I've read these reports before, this is not new to me. What we have here is, in my view, is really good information about surface water and a really good plan to deal with surface water. And we don't have a plan to deal with groundwater, and we're adding to the groundwater. And so that's all I know. And I don't see anything here that says this is okay. We're going to add 3% to the groundwater, and therefore this is going to be a non-issue. Or it's going to say we're going to add 20% to the groundwater, and you know what? This could be an issue. And that's what I don't see in this. I see the septic person saying, on these soils, this will meet the provincial standards. What doesn't say the water that we've put in there is going to join other water and it's going to create hazard for those across the street. That's what it doesn't say, but that's not what it has to say. It's been asked to say, will this septic tank function in those soils in that location? And the answer is yes to that question, from my point of view, what I read in here. It may be different, but just what I read.
Okay, can I raise a deferral then, like we did last time, or now it can't be deferred? Can we debate the deferral again? Motion.
I'm going back to Mr. Pierce on this one. Mr. Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I think Councilor Quire is going down the road that I was going to suggest. Reconsider the deferral. And then whatever the outcome is on the reconsideration of the deferral, I would suggest you, Council, be explicit with regards to the proponent, the developer, to bring back professional engineers signed analysis that the operation of the septic field, is what you specifically asked, the operation of the septic field will not add to the charge in the groundwater.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you
Which is
have
what we
the
have.
opinion signed by a professional engineer, and then consider that. Now, that's something that could likely be turned around by the developer fairly quickly if he's using the same engineer.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to reconsider deferral. Finally agreed on something.
Okay. I don't think there's any more debate on this. Let's call the question. All those in favor of the reconsideration of the deferral. That's step one.
This first we got to reconsider, then we go to
All those in favor? Those opposed? I don't see any hands on the opposed. We have now
I'll move deferral,
moved deferral.
and with the intent that the applicant bring back a signed analysis from a geotechnical engineer that verifies that the septic system will not add additional charge to the existing subsurface groundwater problem.
Okay. We have a seconder. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'm calling the question. All those in favor? Those opposed? Seeing none. Motion is carried.
See, we can control septic. One of those painful story about that with Scott.
All right. So we don't have to issue the permit because it didn't pass. And now we're into council inquiries, administrative updates. We got a 5:30, don't we? Okay. Okay.
Hey, is there?
So I say we take 1 minute and stand up. Just stand up. 1 minute.
It's all good.
Did we lose Councilor Anderson?
Just good. Just good. Just good.
Yeah, exactly. Well, if I did one of those magnets every afternoon, I'd be in trouble too.
So we have to go to council meeting.
I don't know, ever since we've had the new mayor, our meetings have gotten longer and longer.
I think you're right. I trade him in. There's only so much empirical evidence you could stand. Well, there's only one reason why we're so late, period. And it's got nothing to do with the mayor.
I don't know, I believe
I'm saying, there's only one reason why we're so late.
it's healthy dialogue.
No. We went past that at about 15 minutes. Okay, here we go again. 15 minutes, good hard hitting time. Any comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Those opposed? Seeing none. Next item, Turtle Mountain Boulevard landscaping. Can I have a motion, please? So moved. Councillor Gare, second Councillor Mund. I have a question. Mr. Pierce?
If Turtle Mountain is no longer a client of MQN, then there is no pecuniary interest.
Westfield is,
Westfield,
yeah.
then there's no,
It won't be gone long, buddy. Just stand by the door there. My question is, there's a new word for me here. Rock mulch. I thought we had bark mulch or forest mulch, but here it's talk about rock mulch. That was a new term for me. Can you explain? Ms. Cosette, thank you.
Your worship, we're referring to the rocks in the boulevard there. So all along the boulevard, it would be rocks just like they are right now around the trees.
So I have a second question, which is top of page 81 in our handout. It says, ongoing watering and maintenance and replacement of street trees. Trees will be replaced with a more drought-tolerant species as they die or become distressed. And yet early on, I see that we're going to have trickle irrigation on the trees. Am I reading something wrong? Have I missed something?
Your worship, it will be drip irrigation. We will be putting drip irrigation around all of the trees going up Turtle Mountain Boulevard. Drip irrigation.
I got it. So back to you then. We don't expect to see death in trees if we're running drip irrigation. Is that correct?
Your worship, due to the size of the holes that those trees have went in, we may see all of the roots twisted up and then therefore decline and therefore die. So if we do need to remove, we would be removing, and in the future it would be drip irrigation. So
Thank
that's the reason why they might die.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councilor Hall?
In the report, it said that the residents seem to be happy with 1, 2, 3, so option 4 is kind of, we took all the feedback and option 4 is come out with, so has option 4 been considered?
Your worship, the option number 4 has not been given out to the public, but we do believe that it is a good combination of what everybody did want to see.
Thank you. Seeing no more lights on, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Those opposed, seeing none, motion carried. Thank you, Councilor Hall. Now the deadly one. It is, isn't it? Huh? I was hoping we would get this back, about 3 weeks ago. We could have had a lot of fun with this. Sorry.